Would you want to go before me or after?
This bloke was like, you know what? I am going to take this pain for my wife because I don't want her to feel it.
Oh, that makes me want to cry.
They're so diligent, so disciplined. They focus on one thing at a time. They do it beautifully. There's so much I can take from that one example and then apply it to my everyday life.
You could have chosen a different animal because a beaver is a growler. Have you noticed that I always pop my nose?
Yeah.
Is it odd?
No, because then I copy you and I'm like, oh, that feels amazing.
Popping the old ears.
I sometimes use two fingers like that.
So do I.
Do you?
Yeah. I don't know why though. Maybe if you've got makeup on, then you don't have to smush your
No, it's just
foundation.
a better seal. My nostrils can really wrap around the knuckles better.
I've never, ever seen you do that.
Have you not?
I shamelessly do it all the time. I used to have an obsession. This is actually quite weird what I'm about to admit now. I don't even know why we're talking about this. Something to be said for everything, eh? When I was younger, this probably was like an indication that I was going to have some weird mental health problems later on in life. I used to pop my nose like that. And then I would say a line from a TV show, from the introduction of a TV show that I loved watching at the time. And then I'd almost like say something to myself in my head.
What's the line?
I can't even say it.
Yeah, you have to say
I'll
it.
put it in the show notes. I think it was like Saved by the Bell.
Was it
Anyway, I'd do
Saved by the
that
Bell?
and then I'd say the line or I'd think it in my head. And then I would like reset. And it was like I was resetting my life. And I was saying, okay, so I'm starting from today. And this is really weird because it was almost like, okay, from today I'm going to live a perfect life.
After the...
So isn't that
Saved
like
by the
I'm like
Bell.
setting up like perfectionist tendencies for my life that I was like, okay, from this moment on, and I would say the thing and then I'd be like,
No, do on. Do the full thing.
no, I can't. No, it was like this
It's
isn't
so
this is like
niche.
not a life, it's a high school or something. Some really weird sentence. It's really niche. I was not expecting to say that on the podcast, but this is a really, really open,
Weirder the better.
open, authentic space. So sometimes the less planning, the
I
better.
don't think I've got any weird habits like that. Or had any.
Because you've got a really normal brain.
I've got a... You saw it the other day with Jack. When I was at school with Jack, there was a Chinese guy. And he used to say things with a whistle at the end of everything. So he'd be like...
Like the guy from Family Guy.
Yes! Exactly like that. And me and Jack, like, obviously clocked it early on. And for about 5 years straight, we just couldn't not, like, speak without doing that on every word, like,
Keep
with an S.
going.
I used to do... I think it's from some kind of... Is it Watership Down? When there's, like, some little...
Funny rabbits.
And he's like, say, I'm now the book. Say. There's a little like...
There's a character, that like old man with a pipe.
Yeah.
With something with the road runner that speaks like that.
Say.
Yeah. Keep going.
Give me some S words.
Hello, my name is Ryan.
No.
It's got to be S.
It's got to be like, Louise. That's going to be horrible for people's...
From now on, you can only
But then
address me
when I
as
saw Jack the other day,
Louise.
I haven't seen him for years, and we just slot straight back into it. So that was an experience.
Kids are so unusual, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's just, I wish I was a child again.
Innocence and joy. That's what kids have in abundance. Innocence and joy.
Innocence leads to joy.
We're just so innocent. They don't think anything but just...
Not everybody is.
Siren.
Anytime there's a siren now outside, you have to do that.
Welcome back to He Said and I can't do the she. That's a mouthful. I can't get it out. He said and she said.
It's a mouthful anyway. What idiot chose the name for the show? Right, well, let's have a little think about Should we
get Louise a job with a razor because you got...
Did you just see? I do actually work with a razor band, thank you very much. But yeah, it's the winter, guys, and I would love to know how regularly everybody shaves. I haven't shaved my armpits. Was sort of in a really nice cycle of waxing them and then had like an emergency shave, and then now I'm just kind of
A hairy beaver.
No, not a hairy beaver. Hairy armpits.
No. I said you are a hairy beaver. You haven't. I didn't say you've got a...
Yeah, but you could. Yeah, but you could have chosen a different animal because a beaver is a growler.
Oh no!
What are the names? You said in an episode a few weeks ago, cooch. You kept saying cooch in one of our clips.
I got that from Real Housewives. So, oh, that's quite good.
Oh, sorry. Do you watch Real Housewives?
With you sometimes, yeah.
Money can't buy you class.
Yeah, isn't it your absolute dream to be on Real Housewives of whatever?
It actually is. So
we gotta make that
pipe
happen.
dream. So it's a bucket list goal of mine is to be on the Real Housewives.
I reckon you'd get eaten alive. Or no, they would either absolutely love you or you'd get eaten alive. Probably the first one. They'd love you.
Well, no, whenever someone younger comes on, they're all a bit like,
I don't know if you got enough.
what's that? Locked and loaded.
Yeah. I don't know if you're bitchy enough though. Are you?
No, I'm really way too nice.
Yeah, but that will probably work in your favour. You'd just be adopted as everyone's favourite. I'd imagine.
Because that's quite boring then.
You gotta be pretty.
I could be a bitch just to be because I'm that desperate.
Nah, because who's that? Is it Chelsea on the Selling Sunset? Like she came in hot, real bitchy.
She's English.
I know, and I'm
she
like,
actually follows me. Did we talk about that already?
no.
She occasionally will like and comment under one of my posts. Thrilled.
Did I mention Aaron Taylor?
Who's the most famous person actually? That's oh, you've engaged with a few. Oh my god, now we sound like fucking losers.
Yeah, let's not. Let's not do that.
Sophie Turner actually used to follow me.
Oh, we're doing it.
Epic. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I also have no idea why, but big fan. Anyway, he said,
Have you got one?
yeah, it's a real sort of different speed, this though.
Go on. Get out of your system.
How do I segue into this? You said something about, we had quite an interesting conversation about culture, like Japanese culture the other day. You said to me, which is the biggest blue zone in the world?
Number one blue zone in the world.
Yeah. I didn't get it right. I thought it was a tiny little village in Italy.
Yeah, but you're not far wrong because I think that comes second, Sardinia in
Oh,
Italy.
really?
Yeah. Or might have to fact check if it's Sardinia, but yes, in Italy, yes.
Okay, but number one is actually somewhere in Japan.
Yeah, Okinawa.
And just for anyone that doesn't know what a blue zone is, they're pockets, kind of communities, well, towns throughout the world where people live
Very long.
for a long period of time.
Centurions, I think they're known as.
Well, Centurion's over 100, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but a lot of these people in blue zones are 100 plus.
Gosh,
And
isn't that amazing?
there's a lot of 100 plus in Okinawa.
Okay, there's so much I want to talk about here because my brain is immediately going to, would you actually want to live to 100 plus? Because we've had a lot of conversations recently, and even with your friend Jack, we keep mentioning about what it's like at the end of your life and whether you would want to stick around for a long time when you're suffering.
I'm only going off the context of what I've read about people who are in these blue zones, these 100 plus people. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, take my grandma, for example. I think she's early to mid 80s. And unfortunately, dementia has completely snatched the life out of her. And she's aged rapidly and no longer recognizes anyone in the family. And for her whole life, she was very fit. She was very intelligent. She was a school teacher. She used to consume books at like a rate I've never seen before. Yeah, just out of nowhere, she was just riddled with this disease. But I think my point is, like, what these people in the blue zones are doing very differently is they're living their lives very, very differently. They're keeping themselves very active within a community. They feel very supported. They don't feel lonely or isolated. They're keeping their brains challenged. Their diets are clean. They only eat to 80% of feeling full, as an example of what these people do in Okinawa. They're not filling up with processed and refined sugars and whatever else. And they also, to just stick with this theme of Okinawa and this number one blue zone, ikigai is something that they have a real understanding of. And ikigai is basically like what we would describe as what's your why or purpose for life. Like, why do you bounce out of bed in the morning? Is there a reason or reasons? These people have a very clear understanding of what their ikigai is.
Wow.
It's a fascinating read.
I started it and got to a couple of pages, and in typical Louise fashion, I then picked up a different book and then probably read a few pages of that and then didn't continue. But I'm looking forward to reading it again.
There's lots of pages in this book where I think of you, because they will describe a typical person of the Western world who is a multitasker. And by the way, most people don't actually multitask that well. It's just you kind of rather frantically go from one task to another, to another, to another, and you just leave things unfinished.
Oh yeah, no, multitasking isn't a thing.
Right, but I feel like
it's not something to be celebrated. You can't multitask. You can't do many things at the same time.
But these people, again, just making reference to the folks of Okinawa, they're so diligent, so disciplined. They focus on one thing at a time. They do it beautifully. Whether that's like porcelain, pottery, cookery, whatever it is, like they do one thing at a time. They do it so well, and I just love it.
They seem like very patient people.
Okay, so ikigai, they describe it. I mean, our interpretation of it is probably like finding your why. I think we've listened to Simon Sinek's TED Talk many times about understanding your why and kind of moving outwards from that inner circle, right? Ikigai it's a combination of what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And then if you go even deeper into that, a bit more insular, it's a blend of passion, your passion, your mission, your vocation, your profession. And they seem to have a very clear understanding. They have like a clear objective to their daily lives.
Really?
There's intent, there's purpose behind what they do. And I think ultimately, what happens in, at least what I can see from my experiences, you know, I was going to say you reach a certain age, but I think ultimately just if you don't have a clear understanding of your ikigai or your why, if you want to use that word, you kind of fizzle, you float around and you just bumble around life. And you kind of, you're losing little bits of your identity, your personality, you're not sure where you're going, what you're supposed to be doing, who you're supposed to be helping, who you're supposed to be speaking to, where you're going to make money, what am I doing?
Yeah.
These guys don't live like that.
Well,
they have a very refreshed daily sense of like, I know what I'm doing today and I feel great about it. And they do it.
I've noticed that since you've read that book, you've been getting up really early in the morning, and for an hour you will do a bit of reading and you will also do a bit of writing. And you've said that you've had some of your best days. You get to the end of every day and you've been really happy and you feel like you've got a huge sense of accomplishment. And I feel as though that's because you've set out an intention for the day and you have really clear purpose of what you want to achieve, and then you feel satisfied. You also mentioned something about, and I guess maybe this ties into that, about the fact that they never really retire. Did I make that up?
No, you didn't make it up. No. Yeah, so they don't really have, like, there's not really a word in their language that suggests, like, stepping away from full-time employment and just shutting down into a different lifestyle. So they don't really have retirement even in their language, you could say. So they're always, right up to their last days or whatever, they're active and they're challenging themselves, and it might not be to the same extent, but for example, that they will be involved in a community to the point where they have social groups, where they have games and they do certain things that require them to perhaps put money into this group of friends. And if there's a member of that community who is struggling financially, they will like siphon off and make sure that they're supported. And I think just this whole sense of belonging and safety that brings, it clearly does a lot of magic in terms of just making people feel, oh, this is worth living for. Like, I'm going to keep fighting for this because there's people here who want me here.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going through any kind of struggle, financial or whatever it is, like I've got people in my corner. My grandma, for example, she lost her husband to a different cause, and just jumped off a cliff. Rapid decline of health in every aspect.
Yeah.
And it's probably because she didn't really have much of a community or sense of like, what do I do now? She didn't know what to do. Her partner of life is gone, so she deteriorates, and now she's on her final.
That's the thing, is you need, and the community offers that even if your partner dies, that then you still have your family. Your family might be your community, so you've got people that love and care about you. What that's just reminded me of is, I mean, slightly like off topic, but I guess having a purpose, keeping you going. Is someone said to me not that long ago that we were talking about terminal illnesses or you're having chronic illnesses, and there have been some celebrities who have done documentaries following their life until they die, whether it's that they've got a brain tumor that's incurable, and they kind of follow that story. And the guy that had produced one of those shows said to me, he was like, when people notoriously that like have X amount of months left, if they're working in TV, they bypass that date by a long mile. As in like when people, and I guess that's like one, just highlights what you're saying, when people have a project, a passion, when they're working towards something, when they're distracted, they don't let the illness defeat them. They're so focused on something else that they just keep going. And it's a similar sort of thing. Like you in the TV world, that project might be your community in that moment. You've got things going on. So I suppose, and then if I do look at people that have retired really early, even like my dad, I suppose to some degree, it can, no, actually not. My dad's a terrible example because he's 75 and acts like he's 35. So he's got a lot of life left in him. But often, people can age really quickly. I also don't want to say your dad because it just sounds terrible if we're talking about our parents.
No.
But your dad has just retired and he's worked so hard his entire life. And both of our parents both of our fathers are really driven men and not having stuff to do.
Yeah.
Every day, not having to wake up really early and then, ticking off that list.
Can I give you another
example? It must feel really
example?
odd. And to the point where everyone jokes now, but my dad will wake up 3 times throughout the night to do laundry. Like he will do loads of laundry. He'll go on long walks. He's finding things to busy his day.
Your dad's a really good example of this. He's a remarkably fit 75-year-old, but also your other granddad, even more remarkable. And look at how he lives his lifestyle, and then you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is not a coincidence. He's not a genetic freak. He's a man of like 7 or 8 hobbies, everything from growing bonsai trees to going to the gym to he's now going through like every cigar and making notes from them. He's a musician. He's an artist.
Yeah, he plays bridge. He plays in a band, like in a brass band.
And how old is he? Mid-80s?
Yeah,
and he's got the
fit.
most like perfect posture and everything, and he bounces out of a seat like this.
Yeah, with intention. He's quite Japanese in his
It's epic.
way
I've
of
got
being.
goosebumps thinking about it.
He does. Everything is with a lot of intention.
He's not a typical 85-year-old person. Every time I see him, I'm like, you're in for the long haul, mate.
Gosh, I have a lot of respect for
He's
people
going to put
like that.
Hampshire as a blue zone on the map. That's what he's going to do. Honestly, he's remarkable. That's my aim, by the way. Because all this stress that we've endured for 3 years, it ages you, cellular level.
I know, stress is the biggest killer.
This book has really inspired me to really take my time and enjoy the things I'm doing and just move on like one at a time. I feel like all these like buzzwords like community and one step. It's all just unless I feel like sit with it and really understand what it means, because essentially a community will keep someone alive. And doing one thing at a time properly will give someone satisfaction and joy, and you'll feel content and you'll be like, yes, I've achieved something nice, even if it's small. I actually have taken so much happiness from ticking things off for the first time in a long time. It's not just a case of like, oh, look how busy I am. Like, it's not just, I'm not trying to do it to pretend, I'm enjoying the tasks that I'm doing day to day. Oh, the Japanese, do you know what? Japan's always been a place that I really want to go, and reading this book has inspired that even more.
I'd love to go as well.
Let's go.
And yeah,
let's take the podcast on the road, baby.
Oh, I've already mentioned about that whole umbrella thing. I was sat in a waiting room not that long ago, and there was a Japanese lady that was next to me, and she started talking to me. We'd sat there for a while, and she you say all the really poignant, interesting stuff, and I'll come out with a really silly story like this.
No, it won't be silly.
But she basically, the only reason that she spoke to me was because I had a nice umbrella. And she said that her mother had always said, if somebody has a nice umbrella, it means that they take good care of themselves and that they take pride over their life.
Great.
And
That's great.
I don't know. What did that make me think at the time? We
not silly, by the way.
We spoke about it for quite a while, because an umbrella is something that people often will just buy on a whim. They'll buy a cheap one. They'll leave it somewhere. But I guess it kind of reinforced that idea of like buying something nice, taking really good care of it, keeping it, having one nice thing and cherishing it. And yeah, apparently it sort of signifies being a
well-kept person.
A well-kept person. Someone that really respects themselves.
It's like a military...
And I felt so proud when she said that she'd actually chosen to speak to me. And it was this one Burberry umbrella that remarkably, I lose everything. You know, I'm not particularly good at taking care of my stuff.
Yeah, you got that one nice umbrella.
But that one nice umbrella, which I bought from like a Burberry outlet store when I was weirdly really young. I like found this little outlet store in East London. And I was like, I can't afford anything in here, but I'm going to buy this umbrella because it's the only designer thing I can get.
It's nice,
and I've had it for 15 years. And I always feel good
example.
when I leave the house with that umbrella, and I feel like I'm really responsible.
I like it. That's not a silly example.
And I was speaking to her a little bit about Japan, and she was talking about, so she moved here 10 years ago. She's got 3 kids and they live here. And she was talking about the differences in childcare and education and all of that sort of stuff. But I said, when would be the best time to go? And she said, which I think is cliche, but spring, because of the cherry blossom is really beautiful. So I would love to go in April. And even if we can't get around to doing it this year, I'd love to make that a target to do next year.
I would absolutely love to. I also love the fashion as well.
We named Koji after a Japanese restaurant down the road.
We did.
And Koji apparently means, we didn't realise this at the time, so it's an epic restaurant in Fulham. If anyone wants to give it a whirl, it's quite expensive. We'll rival Nobu. And then we looked into it later, and it turns out it means Japanese fungus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Koji's basically, it's just like shouting fungus in the park.
One of my good friends moved to Japan for 5 years. He even learnt the language to some level. He said it was the best 5 years he's ever had.
Really?
Yeah, we should definitely go. Now I know that you're on board with it. This is very exciting.
There's one thing actually that's interesting about Japan.
Go on.
The Japanese have a great healthcare system. So I think the government pays for all healthcare, with like minor exceptions. And they kind of also offer to pay for public healthcare, but also some private, so you can choose between the two. But what's weird is that and it might not be weird, and I'd love to discuss this and to get your opinion on it. So typically, men aren't allowed to watch their wives give birth, which at the beginning, when I first learned that, I thought that feels really like archaic and backwards and a very odd tradition. Like, why would your partner not be able to see you give birth? Is it because it's an unattractive time? It can be quite gruesome.
It won't be for that.
Or it's probably ties back to this community idea where actually, and I, if we even look at our example of our childbirth, I think there's so much merit in being around women in that room when you give birth. And so I think that instead they have family members, female family members, who can support during that really vulnerable time. And that's probably helpful, especially if it's women that have already given birth themselves, because they're going to be really much better educated, aren't they?
Yeah. I can almost guarantee you that it wouldn't be for like vanity reasons. I really believe, and again, like this is really doesn't hold a huge amount of validity in some ways because I haven't been there, but I think they're incredibly respectful as people. Steve Jobs used to go there very frequently.
Did he?
Yeah. He was inspired by a pottery maker, by someone who did pottery. He used to go back and watch him live create this most beautiful pottery, and arguably took some level of inspiration from him when he turned Apple into a thing with iPhone and whatever else.
Ooh. And I guess because Steve Jobs...
this Japanese artist would like go to the mountain and would get the clay himself, and he would take pride in every step of the process and do it all himself. A bit like, probably like the best butchers or fishmongers around. They will go early to the market and they will handpick the best produce, and they will come back and they will, do you know what I mean? Like you get these small boutique restaurants that are doing amazingly well, probably all over the world. and they could upscale and they could have other chains and spots all around, you know. But I feel like in some situations they're not interested in making money and making a famous brand. They just want to do something really well. And again, there's examples of this in the book where there's this very famous sushi restaurant. Father and son run it. Apparently it's like unbelievably high quality and just the experience is amazing. What's the Japanese makeup brand called? Shiseido. So there's an example within the book at one of the factories, 2 massive units. One's very busy with workers doing, again, just diligent, beautiful work with these different products that they create. There's one next to it, equal size. I think there's maybe, I don't know, a handful of people in there. And they were doing some tour. I think it was maybe some launch event of a new product and there was some press involved. And they went into this second unit and there's almost like no one but one lady in the middle of the room in this huge factory. And she's by hand taking and selecting the hairs that go into the brushes that you probably paint your eyebrows with and eyelashes. And she's selecting the best ones to go on the brush. Wow. And she's so involved in her work and she's working at quite a pace, but she's like, flow state.
Yeah.
In a complete flow state. She doesn't acknowledge, she doesn't get distracted, and she just stays in her zone and she's working at an incredible pace. And they're like, how is she doing this? And then the sort of like senior leader or something calls her name. She's got a mask on and they all just like applaud her basically because they're just looking in pure admiration that she... Can you imagine like walking into... I don't know, if you walk into a gym in London...
Oh, yeah, it's such a good example.
Everyone's going to like go like this, whang, and like look at you. And if they're not looking at you, they're looking at their phone. Like everyone's doing anything but being in their flow state and doing what they should be doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone is checking out what the other person is doing.
Yeah, look at the trainers, look at the fake cans. And this lady, she looked up because she was told to look up, only because she was told to look up. Again, just a sign of how respectful and diligent they are. She looks up and they give her some sort of accolade, or I don't know if they applaud her, but... She had a mask on, but they could tell from her body language and like the squint of her eyes and maybe a little tear that she was just so happy that they'd recognised her, seen her, and she was like so happy to just be doing her work. And I was like, dude, there's so much I can take from that one example and then apply it to my everyday life. I'll give you an example. I was at White City. White City's like beautiful people everywhere, trendy people, like everyone's wearing like cool shit. They got gadgets and whatever else. And I'm sat there and I'm like, no, I'm not going to look... Typically, I'm like, I almost take in too much information. But this time I've got my head down. Again, I'm thinking back to this example clearly in my mind. And I'm like, just keep your head down and keep ticking through your list and see how it feels. And it felt amazing. Like, honestly, my brain was just like actually working rather than just pretending I was busy because I was distracted by everything. And I was churning through my tasks. And for me, that was just really inspirational. And I think I have this belief that the Japanese culture have such a way and such an approach to life that I think we could learn a lot from. I really believe that.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things that I respect about them, but I agree. Like, I love their way of being, the food, the fashion.
Jack went there with his family.
They also all wear quite, like, everything is quite linear. It's practical. So all of the clothes that they wear serve a purpose. They're like insulated little quilted gilets with like cool, comfortable trousers. Everything is like clean and it's not in your face. There's no kind of, well, I mean, actually, I guess it's K-pop again, that's Korean. But like things tend to be a bit more understated. There's less like brash, like logos.
Oh, yeah.
It's all...
Issey Miyake, for example. No logos. It's high price point, but it's beautiful stuff.
And someone like Steve Jobs would wear the same thing every single day because it's efficient. Like you wear one crisp t-shirt that's clean and a pair of trousers, and that takes that distraction away from you. And if you can just focus on the things that you need to get done and get rid of all of the noise. Okay, so
that was a probably unsolicited deep dive into Japan, but we're going in April 2025 or 6. What are you reading at the moment? Psychology of Money. Talk to me about that, because my Psychology of Money is a bit...
I'm only 10 pages in, babe.
Yeah, but you do have a Psychology of Money, don't you? You have an abundance mindset.
I think I'm interested in it, and I found myself interested in it at the back end of last year. And I'll be really honest, like in a kind of cringe way, I realised that I didn't know a lot about money, and I'm 34, nearly 35. And there's a whole world out there that I just didn't have a clue about. I've never really known what investment bankers do. I mean, I've not known a lot about like the city, and I stumbled across something, and it was a video, and this guy was just really breaking down ways in which you can accumulate wealth, basically. So kind of diversifying your income. And so I've been working on that through using affiliate platforms, making investments, and actually spending a lot more as well. Like I really do buy into that whole, you've got to speculate to accumulate. Whereas before, I think because we've had such a kind of great work life for so long, I think for years we were quite sheltered. And because we work for ourselves, I've basically never, and I think that's why I was so naive. Like I haven't really worked in a big corporate environment ever. I've worked in a few shops before when I was doing work experience, but we've just worked in the TV world. And then we started doing all the social media advertising. And I've got, relationships with my agent, and I've got great relationships with the brands that I work with. And I was kind of good at being told what to do, doing that. But a lot of it was sort of private, like content creation. And, the money would come in, but I never really knew what to do with it. And now, and also we hadn't really ever, until we obviously set up like our different businesses, the fitness business and also my activewear business, which both were kind of hobby businesses that we started at a certain point. We never really hired people. So we didn't have a lot of experience in that whole kind of, in that mentality of spending in order to get something back. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets, especially with my activewear business, which I've now had to liquidate, was when there was money in the pot, was not spending it on good people who could bring more into the company and who also could teach me.
Yeah.
And now I've taken so much joy in employing people and learning from them and trusting that the more I spend, the more will come back to me. So I guess in that sense, I do have a bit of an abundance mindset. But for a while, I didn't. There have been times when I've worked with my coach, and I would, if there was this sort of dry patch, because with what we do, there isn't a lot of consistency, and we don't have a fixed yearly salary. Things can vary a lot month to month. So there might be busier periods like Q4, so end of the year, a lot of brands advertising because of Christmas, and then little pockets throughout the year. Summer tends to be really quiet. But yeah, I feel like I'm on a bit of a learning path with this whole sort of new interest in business and finance and how to spend and where to spend and investing in a pension and just
You've had a pension for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, actually I have. And they're changing all of the...
You're playing it down a bit, actually. I'll give you credit where it's due. You're really smart when it comes to money. You're in a really, without getting into detail, you've been smart. You set yourself up well.
Thank you.
It's really, I actually don't know how you've done it because I'm completely paralysed by numbers and what to do with. You've done really well. Really well.
Yeah. Okay, look, it's easy to make money when you have money.
Make money. Name the film.
I've been very good at saving, and I've saved too much and just sat on it. And so now I'm actually putting the money in good places and investing in the right things. And I guess, the pension was something that I've never really, no one in my family has ever been. There are different kinds of people, aren't there? There are people that invest in their future, and there are people who invest in the now. And no one in my family has ever really invested in things like health insurance or a pension, basically putting things into place now, like chipping away, like putting, little monthly contributions into something long term. Instead, they've just lived in the moment. But actually investing in a pension has been a good idea because it's obviously tax deductible from the business and it accumulates over time.
I think it's really smart.
But then I think that they're changing the all of the tax implications for pensions and stuff.
Death tax.
Yeah, so many changes. So it's been really smart, but it might be less smart. So I'm actually having a meeting with my pension advisor next week.
But there you go. That makes you smart because you're getting ahead of the curve. Look at you go.
One roundup question, taking it back to the whole longevity thing, because we've gone on a bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a book review episode this week, which has been quite nice. Who would I'm freaking out about the answer, so I can't even ask the question.
I think I know what
Would you want to go before me or after? And by go, I mean died in the grave.
That's a horrible question, isn't it?
Because our really good friend, both of their grandparents just died a few weeks ago, within a couple of weeks of each other. And I think people hang on, don't they? You kind of like cling on. And then sometimes you die of a broken heart.
Yeah.
At the end.
I mean, that did happen to me with my grandparents, yeah. But on both sides, actually.
Well, no, because your grandma's still alive.
No, but her whole decline of health happened when she lost her partner.
Okay.
And on the other side, when my granddad lost his partner, bang, dementia as well. I read something the other day. I don't know where it was. It wasn't in the book. But there was a gentleman, probably elderly, who was grieving the loss of his wife. And he went to therapy. And he was like, yeah, how am I going to get out of this jam? Because what's the point? And the therapist asked him something along the lines of, how much pain have you spared your wife by letting her go first? As if to say, like, she's gone to the next life, and you've taken that pain away from her. Imagine the roles were reversed. And when he sat there and kind of like, he left that room apparently in a much more peaceful.
God, that makes me want to cry.
Well, it does, because this bloke was like, you know what? I am going to take this pain from my wife because I don't want her to feel it. Oh my God! When I read that, I don't know where I was. I was probably there at 5 a.m. bawling out. But
did you cry?
Yeah,
reading it.
Yeah, but imagine that.
I would much rather die before you. Oh, so maybe you would actually choose to die after me.
So you don't have to suffer the pain. That's the point of the example.
That's so nice.
Mate. That's love.
Because originally I would obviously want you to say, I want to die first, so I'm not living on my own without you.
Yeah, mate. What a way to finish an episode.
That's so cute.
That's love though, isn't it? Is that not love? I will take the pain away from you. You go first. Oh my God.
Okay, we've got a listener submission, and this one is making me laugh just because of the he said.
Go on.
Just because it sounds familiar. Hi, Louise and Ryan. What an amazing podcast. You've made something that resonates with me so strongly from my last relationship. We are no longer together, and honestly, from listening to the last episode, it is because we didn't have the space you've created to talk. He was occasionally a bit like you're before, Ryan, and gosh, it is amazing to see you shine and talk in such a lovely and secure way. I guess my he said is him often calling me crazy and a child if I ever brought up something we needed to talk about. Perhaps, Louise, I'm a bit like you in being emotional and needing closure in an argument. He was away for work a lot, which I didn't mind so much in our late 20s. 20s are the time to give to your careers, but I felt quite lonely in the relationship without the prioritization, and I guess I wondered if you had any thoughts about how to get those words out of one's head. We broke up a year ago, and those words still ring around my head and make me feel like I'm going to ruin anything good that arrives. When I know that I was just trying to talk as you guys are in the podcast. He said he would break up before ever going to couples therapy when I suggested it. I just wondered your thoughts.
So they've broken up, and he was a bit like me before, so I wasn't really open to the idea of
communicating
and just like hard conversations. And she tried, and he would come back with "you're crazy" and what?
Childish.
Crazy and childish.
Gosh, you know what? It sounds like a case of him not being able to confront his emotions and have grown-up conversations, and as a result, spinning it onto the other person, which unfortunately has been you, and calling you crazy and emotional. And I feel like, is that gaslighting? Is that just? I hate that behaviour. And it's really sad that even though you broke up a year ago, those words are still lingering in your head. I don't think that you're going to get closure or a conversation from him. But I don't think that there's anything that you've done wrong if you just wanted to talk.
No, she hasn't
work out for you. Not everybody is at a place in their life where they can have the maturity to have those tricky conversations.
That's a key point.
And you also can't force that upon somebody. Hopefully, though, you've created enough space. You say you're worried about what the future holds and whether you'll let in the right person because you've got this kind of cloud sitting over you. But there are so many good people out there. And I think because you've been with someone who didn't give you what you wanted before, hopefully you now know what you do want. And I think that'll be quite clear when you start dating somebody new.
What I would say from my perspective is, as you mature and as you develop through a relationship and you find your voice a little bit, I think that's when you're a bit more ready and a bit more equipped, better equipped to have the conversations. But it is a two-way thing, very much. So they might not have been right for each other in that sense, because it's a fine balance of input from both of you to make sure that space is, first of all, created, but done authentically. It's done fair. Like, you give me the time to speak, listen. Don't just wait until it's your turn to talk. So they may not have been compatible in that sense. And for a long time we didn't talk like we talk now. And it wasn't your fault or my fault. It was a combination of these things I'm describing now. I wasn't at a level of maturity for it. I wasn't ready for it. I probably would have said things like couples therapy can do one, Now, probably a little bit different. But my point is, there's accountability from both sides of the party. Your partner has to facilitate and create and foster that environment where he feels safe and vice versa. And that comes down to compatibility, in my perspective. So it's probably a good thing that they're not together. But they would have both probably learnt a lot, and it will facilitate, I think you said this already, but it will help their next relationship. Well, that was a good one. I enjoyed the little segue into the Japanese culture.
You've got me really inspired to start reading again a bit more this year.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that massive bookshelf that we have in our house that looks, it's pretty, but is it function? It's what am I talking about? It looks the part, but does it do the trick? I need to read so my language is better. And
just remind yourself what's the purpose behind it, though. What's the purpose behind reading something? Is to challenge and what's the word? Keep your brain malleable.
Can I tell you one of my favourite quotes?
Yes, please do.
I'm going to read it out because...
Should I get it tattooed on my... Go on.
You might want to hear it first. A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one. Mm-hmm. By reading, you get to live everybody's life. You get to inhale everyone else's knowledge. Mm-hmm. The best way to be. Otherwise, you're just stuck in your own little head.
You said that, Ernest Hemingway.
I called George Martin. But now actually just it's a Louise Thompson special. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Bit of a different one this week. And as always, we'd love to hear from you guys, whether that's sending in a listener submission if you want us to answer one of your questions or a dilemma.
Try to.
Give you a bit of relationship advice. Or just commenting online, then we'd love to hear from you guys. And if you don't already, then please do follow us across social media. You can find us at He Said, She Said, and also subscribe on all the audio platforms, Spotify, Audible, and we're also kicking around on YouTube.
Great. See you next week.
See ya.